Thank you for being here with us this morning. I know folks are probably pretty tired from the semester and grading and Canvas fun and
So we're glad you're here. Yes, so we're talking about the impact of experiential learning, preparing students for community-based learning. And this part is a panel discussion, and then a little bit later on, Amanda Chauka and I will do our workshop directed towards faculty. And I'm Amanda Harrison. So let's see. We're going to start by meeting our lovely panelists. And we have one who's going to come a little bit later, so we'll integrate him when he gets here. You guys want to introduce yourselves? Or? Yeah.
Sure. Good morning.
Microphone.
Testing. Good morning. My name is Lex Ballard. I use they, them pronouns. I am the Director of Youth and Family Support Services at Horton's Kids. And I have been working, 2 years now with AU students as they do their experiential learning with us. So it's nice to meet you.
My name is Ella Stevens. I am the Program and Volunteer Coordinator at Horton's Kids. I work with the AU kids who are doing community service learning, and I coordinate their volunteering. I also was a volunteer myself for 4 semesters and then transitioned into working at Horton's Kids. Yeah.
And you graduated last year, right?
Yes, exactly a year ago.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Rachel. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a AU student that has taken Professor Chautka's community service learning class as a freshman. I'm a rising senior now, and I've continued my volunteering experience with Horton's Kids for the entire duration of my time at AU. I'm also involved pretty closely with the Center for Leadership and Community Engagement. I've done their community service learning program twice. I'll be doing it again in the fall. And then I am also the Strategic Partnerships and Outreach Chair for the Eagle Endowment. So I have a pretty good idea of the type of service that students are interested in doing at AU.
Yep.
I'm Allie Chrysler. I am currently the Director of Undergrad Programs in the Department of Health Studies. I currently teach our capstone course, which is our senior seminar, where we partner with community partners, generally in groups. It's a class of usually upwards of 25 students, so they usually work in groups of 3 to 4. Also, I teach a grad program eval class that we did work with the community partner. So instead of talking about how to do process and outcome evaluation, we actually worked with the partner and created a plan based on a grant that they had received. Also for faculty in the room, I am going to be your new ombud starting Friday, so it's great to meet all of you. So I will be transitioning out of my director role to focus on the ombud's work this summer. So I'm excited to meet all of you and, officially launch the work in the fall.
Hi. Amanda Chauka, she, her pronouns. I have been teaching service learning courses since 2011, partially brought in by colleagues, especially one who did community-based learning. I worked a lot with the Center for Leadership Community Engagement, then the Center for Community Engagement and Service under Marcy Compos's leadership back then. I've continued teaching service learning courses, and especially in the last 10 years, the courses have shifted to more of an anti-racist perspective, training students to volunteer more equitably and reciprocally in the community. I always partnered with Horton's Kids. I was actually their first intern way back when I was in college in 2005. And I worked for them post-college, before grad school, and I volunteered with them during grad school. So when I started teaching service learning courses, they were immediately one of my community partners. But it became increasingly clear as students volunteer with them over the first 5 years of this, that students needed a different kind of support volunteering in a community they do not belong to do better by the children of Horton's Kids. So that's where my complex problems class, doing better, doing good, emerged from. It's focused solely on the Horton's Kids community and the kinds of things students often experience. So.
All right. I'm going to go back to this slide so we just sit on that one. All right. So this very first question is for all of you. So you can speak from community partner, student, and faculty perspectives. What do you think makes for a successful partnership? between AU in this instance and the organization?
Oh, welcome. I think one of the things that makes our partnership so successful is the collaboration. It's not just like Amanda was saying, essentially, it's not a group of people that are coming into our community who we don't get to work with before they come in. And we work with them extensively throughout their time as well, right? We serve 100% Black children and families. So a lot of times folks are coming in with privileges that they may or may not be aware of, biases that they may or may not be aware of. And we spend a good amount of time getting them ready, right? Helping them see some of these things, talking to them about what they may experience. I think the longevity of the partnership has also been really helpful. I think I've been there for 2 years. When I started, Amanda was helpful to me in my role, right? Historically, there have been a lot of people who extract from my community. And there are not a lot of partnerships that are built on mutual respect, dignity, right? True support. But this particular partnership is. And a lot of that is because we work together when we're talking about how to support the AU students and how to support my students and families.
Something that I've found is a benefit of working directly with the community service learning program here and with the CBLR classes like Professor Chauka's class is that there is a system of accountability for our volunteers, because it means that there is a way for us to be able to rely on them, especially since a lot of our volunteers are students and freshmen, so they're still learning their way in the world. And so it helps. Whereas, like, if we have volunteers coming in just from the city, coming in organically through other organizations, but those are the organizations that just match them and then the relationship's over. It's very nice for us to be able to say, hey, this person hasn't been showing up. Is something happening? Like, can we talk to them if we're having trouble getting in contact with something? If, God forbid, something happens, we have people that we can go to, a network of people we can work with to address whatever issues there are. Whereas with the plain old classic volunteer style, we really do just have to operate off of, like, hoping that they check their email. So that's one of the things I love about this program, is that it creates a network for us to work with that really makes volunteering even better. And with the long term of students who are continuously coming back for as long as like a 4 to 5 year period, if they're regularly volunteering, if they enjoy their volunteer experience, which the majority of them do, I would say, then we're able to have them form relationships with the kids. That I think is the most important part, because of teacher turnover and the way that people volunteers will come in for one day and then leave, and it's in our case, we have like semester volunteer blocks, and we have a lot of people who do come in for one semester and then they leave. But the best thing is to see people come back. And I think that programs like this are what's supporting that. And that ultimately is helping the kids in their social emotional learning, in our case, because they have attachment to adults that are not only just their parents, their grandparents, the members of their community, but people coming in from outside that they can learn all sorts of other experience from.
I think from a student perspective, one of the benefits of programs like this is that one of the biggest boundaries or like barriers to getting involved in volunteering is just it's really intimidating to do something new by yourself. And so having a class community that you're experiencing this with makes it less scary. Having a faculty advisor of sorts that can give advice and help you navigate the introductory periods, and then also having communication with the community partner, not only engage or encouraged but required oftentimes, is incredibly beneficial to developing good, healthy habits with volunteering, getting in the habit of going every week, doing it consistently. And then, the accountability element is also a really good motivator for coming back and being a reciprocal partner, like offering something to them outside of what you're getting in return as a student. And I think that kind of systemic support is what makes it so easy for students to want to come back year after year, because there are people who can help them navigate things and they don't feel like isolated or alone in their volunteering process.
For me, I think it's twofold. I feel really strongly that our students are going to school in the whitest and most wealthy ward in Washington, D.C., and they could easily graduate from American University not stepping foot outside of Ward 3 or in the areas of D.C. that we often see on the news or you might see on social media and what to do in D.C. this weekend or something. It's really important to me that our students learn how to be citizens in DC and think about people across the city, but have the space to think about that more critically and thoughtfully. It became increasingly important, especially around 2015-16, in another program, actually, that Amanda Harrison now teaches. Students were pointing out that we needed to spend more time talking about the more complicated issues of race and equity, especially if we're sending students into communities they don't belong to. And it became increasingly apparent to me that there were students who were treating the relationship with Horton's kids transactionally and going in and getting their service hours or getting a feel-good moment with a 6 or 7-year-old and not thinking about some of the deeper things. So one of the reasons I've continued to partner with Horton's kids over the years is they've changed their approach, not only in their staff and their programming, but also how they support volunteers. There was some turnover, like most nonprofits had post-pandemic, and Horton's Kids, especially in the last couple of years, has made some really dramatic changes to support the community and volunteers. The training that Lex and Ella have led in the last year alone, that's led to much more effective, I think, and thoughtful volunteers. The students may not always get it right, but they're at least learning and they're thinking about these things. So I do think we have an obligation as a university to give our students the spaces to work in communities they don't belong to, but how to do that well.
There's also different types of components of this type of experiential learning, right? So in a capstone course, students are working in a small team, and we kind of phrase it like they're almost like a consultant because they're working on a project that when I work with the community partners, I say, give us something that you just don't want to do, that you just don't have the time or capacity to get started. Let us get started. Let us get messy with it so we can give you, a jumping off point. So there's that component. But I think what's so important about this community engaged work is that we're not just saying, here, students, go do this work with this community partner. For example, this past May 1st, it was decision day at a high school. And one of our community partners, Dr. J, she is the new medical director for the school nurses and DCPS. And she's a new partner. I've worked with DC Health for several years, but she's a new partner. I could have easily been like, you're working with the students. I don't need to go. My students couldn't go, but I said, I'm going to go. We were able to build that connection over the course of 2 hours where I got to tour the school. I got to see more about the work that she's invested in, also see Decision Day, which was really exciting at Dunbar. I think it's as the faculty member, you are that link that's continual, right? Your students are turning over, but you're the link, and you have to be engaged with the community partner. Another point that I really want to make is every community partner has a different level of engagement they want from their students. I have community partners like DC Health, which Leah wouldn't mind me saying this. She wants them only to contact her via text if they have an immediate question. She doesn't want weekly updates. She doesn't want to meet with them every other week. She doesn't have the capacity. I have other community partners where they're like, we want to meet weekly or bi-weekly, right? So I make it part of the requirement of Capstone is that I tell students, you have to find out what your community partner wants. You have to build out that communication strategy. And most importantly, you need to create your task list. This community partner is not going to tell you what to do. I can't tell you how many students tell me, can you just tell me what to do? No, you're going into the workplace. I'm not here to do that anymore. This is going to be messy. And I want you to create that task list of what you need to do, create those questions to get the community partner to talk you through what is not working. One more example. We had Dr. J, she came in midway through our project with the school nurse program. So for some of you might know, DCPS, Children's for the most part was operating the school nurse program in DCPS. They have stopped that, and now DC Health, the community, I don't remember the specific space, but the community kind of program used to do it, and now it's actually HOSTA. So HOSTA's overseeing the school nurses, which is it's like their, HIV, AIDS, STD kind of work that we do. So Dr. J came in midway. My students had to do a complete pivot of their project. Can I tell you what they did at their presentation? They were frustrated. And I was a little bit caught off guard because I felt like that frustration should have been coming in the community partner presentation that was happening. And it was a miss on my part. And it was a miss because we all are so used to pivoting. Right? Like, this happens all the time. We do something, our supervisor's like, no, you got to redo it, right? I've done that so many times and I missed it. So after that presentation, I did a bit of a course correction and I said, you know what? I wish I could create this pivot in every single student group that we do every semester, because this is exactly what the workplace is like. You go in, you have an idea, and then you have to pivot halfway through. And then Dr. J was like, absolutely. Leah was like, so they didn't see it as the students being frustrated, but that this was a really critical learning opportunity. So that's also what our community partners can help us with.
Okay, so I'm going to say, think back to the very first time, maybe even as a student, that you engaged in service learning or created a course that was community-based learning. What do you wish you had known before you started working on that community engaged project or service experience?
So I went to Dickinson College undergrad, and even back in the 2000s, folks were throwing around the term service learning, but it was only built into certain courses or to the alt break experience. But we kind of use it as an umbrella term for all of this work. And I worked in the Office for Religious Life and Community Service because back then at Dickinson, they were one office. And we were adjacent to their version of the Center for Diversity Initiatives. I think that was actually the name back then. But the work wasn't embedded within each other. There wasn't a social justice focus in the service work. And the more that we started to volunteer in the community, even though Dickinson College is in a predominantly white community in central Pennsylvania, the more I realized there was something disconnected. If it was, we weren't talking about the economic differences. A number of us worked in an after-school program where many of the children going there were immigrants or migrants. There was something missing in our training and how we talked about service. And especially when we started to talk about these things about 10 years ago at AU, and more of us started realizing, because our students were telling us they needed more training on this was the thing that I was like, this was what was missing back then. And this was also what was missing when I was a young intern at Horton's Kids, when Horton's Kids was an office of 5 white women who might have had good intentions, but were also reinforcing white supremacy dominant culture. So
yeah, I can go. My first service learning experience was my freshman year, fall semester in Professor Chowka's class. I think the thing I missed out on the most during that first semester was that I didn't engage enough with the parents and the staff at HK. I think when sometimes you go into a volunteer experience and you see your role as extremely limited to like exactly what you're told you're supposed to do, and there's so much other wisdom and experiences that you can get just from experiencing or like being in a space and sharing space with people. And so my first semester, I was only working with elementary kids. I had my group that I went with on my days, and I thought that was where the limit was to how much I could get out of that experience. And then through each semester and attending like multiple days a week for some semesters, or doing weekend events where I got to engage more with the community, or I was walking around Anacostia more and like just embodying space somewhere that like I'm not super familiar with and getting to know people that I otherwise wouldn't have talked to. I've taken way more away. And I think those sort of incidental learning opportunities are just as valuable as the intended volunteer experience when doing experiential learning. And I think that's something that I've tried to do more this semester too, is engaging more with parents and the parent volunteers that are a part of programming as well. So that's been really great.
If I may, my first volunteering experience, at least while I've been in DC, was, I would say, my sophomore year. I did not come about it through Professor Chowka's class. I was in Dr. Joseph's Schools and Society class in School of Ed. If anyone knows Dr. Joseph, love her. And so that was a CDLR class. And we had to get, I believe, 35 credits of community service hours. And so went to the volunteer fair, saw a table with two very nice people at it, talked to them both and said, wow, they were nice. I'm going to go there. And I picked that one. And I think that I came in with the training that Horton's Kids provided, and we had a great volunteer coordinator at the time. She set us up very well to know what we were going into and what we could expect. But I think that I was coming in very going to this neighborhood I'd never been to before. I don't know anything about this place. All I know is that it's on the other side of town, super far away. And what I wish that I had known and what I wish I had was the support and education that Professor Chowka offers in her class. Her class, the kids get a week or two crash course in Anacostia at Horton's Kids History, all this stuff.
Or 2 weeks because DC got a little messier last
True. And so when those volunteers come to us, they're like, oh, well, I know about how in the 90s Horton's Kids did this and this and this. And I'm like, I didn't even know that, because they're coming in with more knowledge about the organization than I have at this point. And so I think that having that support system, especially Dr. Chapka's class, Professor Chapka's class has, is something that I wish I had, because I came to it all organically. It was just a learning process for me, learning about the community. And then I was seeking out education, finding documentaries and stuff like that, because I was like, there's way more I need to know about this community. And if I want to continue coming here, I need to do the work to figure out where I am and what I'm contributing to.
I'm hoping our other student would be here. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, Rachel.
My best.
And check agreed an update from it. Although, again, I think almost all of you have engaged when you were undergrads in some kind of community-based learning. So I wanted to ask, how has CVL participation affected your college trajectory? Oh, thank God, where to start? Speaking from my experience, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I came into college. I'm a sociology major. I took a soci class in high school and I fell in love with it. And then everyone told me that you couldn't do anything with a sociology major. And I was like, hey, great, I got to figure that out at some point. My first semester, I took the SOC's class, and it instantly set me on the path of nonprofit service and social work. So that's been a guiding light for me throughout my entire college career. And then I've gotten jobs with HK as a result of my volunteering experience. My involvement in community in the CLC office has absolutely changed the trajectory of my college career. Their CSLP program has gotten me a free class worth of credit. Their Eagle Endowment has given me so much professional development and marketable skills. I've also learned from so many people that I never would have met. Certain passions that I have within my sociology degree, criminal justice reform, and just so many contacts that I've made. I'm trying to think of all the different things, but I think also I've made friends through volunteering, both at AU and some of the GW students that volunteer, Howard students that volunteer, community members that I've now gotten to know, which has been incredibly enriching. I think that AU often markets as DC is your campus, and I have people that I know that don't know what go-go music is that go here. They don't. It isn't built into AU that you have to experience all of the rich history and culture that DC has to offer. And I think on a personal level, most of my growth that I've had at AU has happened off campus and through engaging with resources and community partners that I wouldn't have even known was an option to do because I've taken a CP class and gotten engaged in service. So I'm incredibly grateful for all the opportunities that it gave me. And it's really nice now being a PL, being able to watch other freshman students be engaged in the same systems and processes. So it's just rather great.
Yeah, I will say, similar to Rachel, I completely agree that
majority of my college growth was happening off campus, 100%. And I don't think I would have been doing that without a CBLR class starting me out on that task. And I will always be a forever fan, trumpeter, and whatever the word would be for CSLP, because I go around, I tell everyone I know to take that, because that takes, 3 whole credits off? Like you do 3 semesters of volunteering, that's 3 whole credits you get back. My final semester, I only took 3 classes because I had all that free room from CSLP. I loved it. It was awesome. But I came in as a film major, believe it or not, and did my minor in education. So I decided that at the end of my freshman year. That's how I ended up in Schools and Society. That's how I ended up at Horton's Kids eventually. But somewhere around my sophomore year, I figured out that I wanted to work with kids entertainment. I wanted to make kids entertainment. I want to write. I want to produce. I want to everything kids entertainment, right? And part of that revelation was from working with kids at Horton's Kids. Because I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these kids, and I'm like, what are they watching? What do they need? What entertainment do the kids that I'm working with need? And I think that that's something that I'm constantly on the radar for. Whenever anyone starts talking about a show they like or a movie that they're watching, they start telling jokes from something, I'm like, okay, what are we talking about? Tell me more. Why do you like it? I feel like crazy. I'm doing like surveys on them. But I did CSLP and 3 semesters of CSLP, followed by 2 semesters as a peer mentor for CSLP. And then that flowed into being a program assistant at Horton's Kids. So not only did the CLC realm get me the peer mentor job, 2 semesters of that, and then that pushed me into the PA job at Horton's Kids. I think that it has completely set me up for where I am now. 1 year post-grad, working as the program volunteer coordinator at Horton's Kids. Like, I'm here saying, like, CSLP and CLCE has fully, like, given me opportunities that I had no clue were even on the table. And my senior capstone for my film degree, I did a talk show, interview show with the kids at Horton's Kids, because it just made sense. And it was probably one of the best opportunities that I had, because I got to work with the kids. I got to put together all of that. And now I'm continuing it. I'm doing an enrichment with the middle school kids, where I'm trying to get them behind the camera. I'm trying to get them excited. I'm trying to get them, because when I did my capstone, they were far more excited about using the technology than actually being on camera. They're like, I don't need to be on camera. Can I do the camera? Can I do the clap slate? Like, can I hold the mic? And I was like, sure, go ahead. So that is what I captured. And I was like, all right, we're going to do an activity Thursdays. Let's do this. You guys are going to be doing this. You guys are going to be doing this. You guys are going to be my crew. So we're trying to get that like really set so that they can understand this and have the opportunity to do these roles. And that capstone project that I did last year was just nominated for a Visions Award this year for some reason. Didn't win, but still cool to get nominated. And so it's honestly been an awesome way to meld what I was doing in my major for my degree with what felt like a lot more of a realistic passion in the education side, and what turned into employment. And I'm very happy with how I am now, 1 year post-grad, still living in DC, still loving what I get to do every day.
Still walking everywhere.
Still walking everywhere. I love walking. Hey, we could talk about walking later. I love walking around DC. It's the best way to see the city. But I think it's definitely like, I don't know where I would have been without any of these CLCO. Yes, programs. I think that they have really laid the groundwork, and I can see that with other kids coming in now. It's great to see them also coming in and joining into CSLP, then going to this and moving on to this. And it's great to see everyone coming in through the program and also getting these opportunities.
Chris, don't want to put you on the hot seat, but would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, good morning. My name is Christopher Charles. I am a master's student in an MA in public health and practice and innovations. My background before this, I was in the military. I was in the Marine Corps. So I'm a different type of student.
But a great one.
A great one.
Great one.
Yes. My introduction into DC really is through some of my nonprofit work at Latin American Youth Center. I've also worked at the Department of Health. So I've also worked with interns that are in programs like this, as well as being a student that's turned it in more now.
Again, not to put you on the spot, but do you want to speak to how engaging in community-based learning has affected your academic or career trajectory?
Yes, I did for myself. Being able to see what's actually happening on the ground, as I mentioned, coming from the military background, my original job was intel, but my secondary job was doing diplomatic security, right? And so coming to DC and taking and learning public health during the pandemic, I really thought about bridging the gaps between diplomatic relations and the work that we do in the U.S. there and how that's so strong. How can we bring that to public health, right? And so especially looking at education. So I think for me, it was always trying to get to the ground to understand what people actually need leading from a human-centered design. And when we get to, for myself, actually like being there in that space, I learn better. I learn better because I get to actually see the nuances. And instead of always seeing the hypotheticals in your head, you get that hands-on experience. That's very critical. And then also working at Latin American Youth Center with a lot of young interns, seeing them and being able to give them that experience and enriching their side and showing them maybe how other ways of thinking about outside the box and listening to some of their great ideas really just helped myself as a program manager.
Such good answer. These are such good answers. I'm glad they're being recorded because I feel like they're quotable. Okay, so this is another question that's for everyone. What kind of support would make these partnerships more doable, more manageable? And again, you can speak from your perspective as student, nonprofit, professor. Funding would be great for things. I know one of the challenges I face in Professor Chapka's complex problems class is a lack of funding for transportation. Obviously, DC is really public transit is really big in DC, and Wilmot is great. But AU is isolated. We're 3 rectangular towns, like a bus right away, and it takes a while to get all the way down to Anacostia, and especially with our class schedule, specifically with how HK programs run, it can be difficult for students to get there on time if they have certain classes. So having a lift fund would be really beneficial. We used to have one. It got cut pretty drastically.
It got cut again mid-year.
Yeah, so that's presented a challenge. I think, those kinds of functional obstacles are just kind of disheartening to know that, especially now, like being in CLCE and engaging with students that really want to volunteer and hearing all of their ideas for service, knowing that there are so many functional obstacles, like transportation, is just really disheartening because it does really thin the herd in terms of how many projects are able to make it off the ground, and how many initiatives aren't realized because of sort of functional challenges that students face to volunteering in service.
I would say something that, speaking as the volunteer coordinator, something that I feel we would benefit from is a promotion of community service learning across the schools, not just in like a particular class here or here, not just in School of Ed, not just in, I guess, like, what other school focuses on community service learning?
PAS.
PAS does a lot.
Yeah. School of Ed. SOC.
Yeah. That's good. I would love to see it being integrated elsewhere in other realms, in other schools. Like, we can get COGOT involved in this. Like, there's plenty of ways that we can involve students, even if it's just like a few hours of community, like go do one community service event, having that part of the syllabus, because that is where I'm looking for people who aren't just like our people who come regularly. Like we have events that we need volunteers for. There's this giant volunteer base of students here with nothing to do on their weekends. And I'm like, hey, we got a fair happening. We want to have serve hot dogs. Like, come on down. But the ability to be like, hey, this could be something that you can engage with. Hey, go look for like even just an activity for an assignment, like look in your community, go on this website, go on this thing, look for an event that has something to do with this thing we're learning about this week, right? There's plenty of stuff like that available in DC. So not just for us, there are plenty of opportunities for students to get out into the city and volunteer with one of the thousands of nonprofits in the city, thousands, hundreds of thousands. It's
15,000.
yeah, it's the capital of nonprofits in this country, probably the world. Like, there's so many opportunities for students to go out. I do think that is something that we can utilize in the other schools.
I would love this to be integrated into AU Encounters. I don't know if anyone has taught in AU Encounters, but I was just thinking, because I taught it last fall, teach it again in the fall, I'm probably going to do a course on DC history. Just kind of like, all of you talking about that, and then also about this specific work that they could be engaged in. So I've been known to go rogue at AU Encounters and do my own thing and go off the requirements. I know it's being recorded, but I think it's just so.
And Bridget Troutman's looking.
Yeah. Hi, Bridget. Love you. She knows I do this, but right, Bridget? Don't you think?
We have a meeting next week.
I know I'm going to be there. I'm going to bring it up.
Faculty need to be able to meet their students, right? And friends.
I think it's great. Yeah.
I think from the side of the nonprofit, something that could be super beneficial for a lot of my kids is more access to AU. The graduation rates are trash, right? There's so much that they could see and experience for the first time, maybe in their family, the parents that we work with. So we also run at Wharton's Kids a community caregivers collective. It is a 5 to 8 week course that meets twice a week for anyone who gives care in the community, and they're super engaged. So the parents that Rachel was talking about that work for our programs, they've all gone through this course and have been hired, just like these two. Rachel's leaving in summer, I didn't talk about it. But they also are in these like very transformative periods of their lives where they're growing in ways that they didn't think that they could, and they're doing things that they never thought that they could do. And why can't college be a part of that, right? And even for our high schoolers, right? They're getting ready, and they're like, most of them are like, I don't think I'm gonna go to college. Why not? Well, I've never even been to one. There's so many. And we work with a couple, and we need to do a little bit more just to give them some exposure. So,
My little plug. SOS. Okay, I know I'm not a panelist, but I want to throw this out there. So I oversee DC Community Impact Scholars. And so when we have projects where we work with like high school students, usually at the end of the semester, we invite them to campus and have our students like give them a tour and do all that. And I don't know if it will still work with the way the meal plans work now, but our students were like, we have so many meal swipes. So they would just use their swipes and swipe in the students, and they would go into the cafeteria. And I don't know, the cafeteria is very exciting if you don't live here, apparently. And it's so easy to do. I mean, the hardest thing was actually, I think, for the nonprofit getting permission slip signed. I have first. Yeah. So, you're good. Tell me when. So it's very doable, and it doesn't have to cost a lot or anything even.
I think one other role that I forgot to mention, I'm a faculty fellow for community programs and Center for Leadership Community Engagement right now. And one of the things that I do is kind of unmucking and figuring out all the ways that community-based learning is embedded in the university and how we can do better and how to connect these different places. So sometimes it feels like that job is herding cats. Like I often joke that my complex problems class that I personally take every semester is a complex problem of transportation of Wharton's Kids. To bring children to campus, we need to get forms from AU to the children coming to campus if they're under 18 saying that we can do that. I know that's possible, but there are challenges there. But I also agree that especially if Horton's Kids and other community partners are giving so much to AU students, all of this professional experience, job training, life training, then we have an obligation to give back more than we are taking. And I do feel at times that universities look at service learning as something that helps their students, helps make their students more marketable in an awful job market, but they aren't thinking enough about the nonprofit. And I really hope, like Lex was pointing, that we can think about ways to partner in bigger, more robust ways, especially with groups that need that support.
Can I add an example? So years back, a nonprofit called Light Pieces to Masterpieces had a 6-week summer program that they held on AU's campus in the K Spiritual Life Center. And AU gave them free space, and it was a way that the kids, I don't know if they came by bus or how they got here, but they were coming every day to both learn and enjoy and do recreational things. So I think the access to space is also, you know, I know usually AU has to charge for space, but to do that for a nonprofit would be a symbol of commitment to the city. Sorry, wait. I just said thank you.
Okay. This next question is for my nonprofits, but I actually think everybody will probably have an example that they can offer. What are some kind of bad behaviors you've seen from college students or partners? It doesn't have to be AU specifically, but we accept that there's some behaviors that, you know, just things you've seen that you are like this would be better if this wasn't happening.
Look at Ella's face, Lord. Let me try. I would say that the volunteering experience, particularly for the freshmen, is a great opportunity for them to learn communication in a professional environment. I would say that the bad behaviors are generally communication related. In my experience of the coordinator, I'll say, because that is where I am dealing with them the most. I am with them at programs. I'm also a program assistant, so I'm there elementary with the kids every day. It's so much fun. And I'm there with the volunteers as well. But with all the volunteers, I am emailing them. I'm sending them newsletters. I'm sending them information. We had our spring break because the kids were all out. This was mid-April. We had spring break, and I still had at least 3 volunteers show up for programs because they didn't read my texts, they didn't read my emails, they didn't check any of what I sent them. So
They class that day.
they didn't pay attention, they didn't listen to Professor Shauka. Like, it's a great opportunity for them to learn by making that, 45 minutes to an hour trek across the city just to be told that there are no programs. That is a learning experience for them to realize maybe you should read your email because somebody did spend an hour making that newsletter. So I think it's a great learning opportunity for them.
When students have to communicate with their community partner, the first email, I actually have them send it to me before they send it. And I know you all probably are thinking that is ridiculous for seniors, but it's not actually. So I've had times where I spend a lot of time in class talking about intent versus impact.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you intend in an email. All that's going to be read is your impact. So we have to talk a lot about tone in emails. And I can say, I know your intention is this, but this is the impact that I'm getting, and I have to revise emails. Usually after I've seen 2 or 3 that the tone is, I think, appropriate, then I let that email without going through me. I've never had students give me pushback on that. They actually welcome it because they know it's a difficult part.
I would say probably a few things. But my biggest pet peeve is them holding the children. Oh, interesting. Every day I'm like, put her down. Put her down. And it's the same kids, okay? The kids know exactly what they're doing, right? They're like, oh, it's their turn, it's done. If it's gonna pick me up, they're gonna hold me. They're gonna let me braid their hair. And I'm like, do you know what they've done with those hands all day? You're gonna have to wash your hair so many times. Hey, there's slime in your hair, honey. Like, you just don't let them. So the boundary part is hard. And I know, especially for my littles, we have pre-K. I mean, who's not gonna want to fold a pre-K? Like, they're adorable.
And they are starting, the whole point of them being there is that they're starting to learn what independence is, right? So that's really hard for me in general, especially because it's kids and kids that you're telling not to do the thing. I think the other thing that Amanda, Rachel, Ella, they do a really good job with kind of preparing the interns to come in and just for the chaos, right? Like you have K through 12, sheer chaos, organized chaos, but nevertheless, the interns can often be really intimidated. And some interns stay intimidated. And so what I try to do is when I train them, like, sorry, this is being recorded, I curse. Because I'm like, you're going to hear a lot of this, right? Like, don't be afraid to say, stop that. What are you doing? Hey, chill. You can't do that, right? Don't be afraid to sit down, ask them questions. So there's the boundary part, and then there's the other part of being intimidated by so many kids or by the middle schoolers who are like mean by default. They're just being mean because they like you. I know it doesn't make sense. You were probably that way too. So we do a lot of trying to prepare them for what it's going to be. And then recently we've been doing like almost like in-service with them, which I found really helpful. Right?
I'm just going to second what everyone said, communication, boundaries, learning how to write those professional emails. The other one that sadly has become an issue this semester with fashion trends, crop tops. Dressing appropriately, I feel like we're very clear with, you don't have to dress professionally at Horton's Kids, but a t-shirt and jeans is fine. But with the proliferation of crop tops, yeah, true. I need to find a different way to make this clear and in a way that makes sense to our students. That doesn't feel like policing. Yes. And doesn't make me feel like a Catholic school. Yes. My own trauma is coming out there. But it's important, and the students can sometimes be dismissive of it. But it's increasingly, especially again with boundaries. And I think especially with scenario students out into different jobs. After CSLP, this is something they're increasingly going to realize matters.
I think also one thing that bothers me as a fellow student is when students treat volunteering like it's like an optional thing. Like if you sign up for a weekly recurring shift, you need to show up every week. And like one of the things that I hear a lot is like, well, I have a big English paper tomorrow and like I really have to work on it and it's 4 hours in the evening. And I'm like, yeah, it's 4 hours you knew about before and could have managed your time better. And if I can do it, you can do it. So I think like that's something else that the accountability of CDL is really helpful because you're required to get hours in order to get a grade. And as much as grades shouldn't be driving morality and like good decision making, a lot of the times for students, it's the difference between doing something or not doing something. So I think that's one of the important elements of the structure as well, because if there's a CDL class participating with a community partner, they need volunteers. They need volunteers real bad. And so the idea that you're making a commitment and not upholding it, I think, can be a problem that runs rampant sometimes. That group me chat, it might really get to speak. But
Yeah, always make finals are tough.
it's that's one of the things that I think is really valuable about CPL and like forming the habits. Because once you do it for a semester, it's easy to be like, yes, this is part of my routine now that I have to go to and upbuild that commitment. But
I'm bouncing off of that. I think that it is such a great opportunity doing community service work out in the city is such a great opportunity to get professional experience, even if it doesn't feel that way. If you're sitting and coloring with kids for like an hour, that doesn't feel like professional experience, but it is because you're showing up, you're on time to something, you are dressed appropriately, you are communicating your absences, you're communicating your latenesses. That is what this is practiced for. Like this is the biggest thing I think that on there's the side of it where it is like a emotional, a social, a cultural experience, but there is also the side of it that is just, it is building you into a mature and responsible person. And I think that that is something that students, college students, and I would say particularly students at AU, in my time at AU, I have observed the issue of kids who are not getting that development, that mature that maturing that they need. And I think that that is something that I find in our volunteers, that we are helping them push that process along. Because, like, I'm not trying to be a nun telling kids not to wear crop tops, and they come to me and they're like, oh, I didn't have time to change. I'm like, but if I was your boss and you showed up to like a business meeting in a crop top, you wouldn't be able to just say, oh, I didn't have time to change. Like, that would have an effect on your job. That's not what this is, luckily. But, like, you have to show the same amount of respect. Just because you're working for free does not mean you are, like, allowed to just flake on things.
Yeah. It might not be a soul draining internship, but like it's a professional experience and it should be treated as such.
Yeah, sure.
I actually wanted to add one more thing that I have heard from a couple different community partners. This one's for instructors, which I have heard, oh, we really love working with AU. We love working with your program because you don't place limitations on what kind of activities your students can do as part of their service. So sometimes I've heard that other universities will say, like, our students can only do service that is direct work with, clients, basically. Like, they have to be working with people in order to get their learning experience. And that is not always what an organization needs or needs help with. And so, like, for example, at Thrive DC, there's a task which every year I have to coach students about how valuable their work is, which is sorting mail. Because they serve as an address for unhoused folks so that they have a place to receive mail. And I have to be like, what you're doing is so valuable. Like, somebody else who actually has like a master's degree in social work should be working with clients, not sorting mail. So, like, you're actually allowing this organization to do its work better. But apparently some instructors at some institutions, not us, need to hear that the different kinds of work are still valid, and you might need to help your students have some perspective on that as well.
Can I?
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is actually really, really important. We do have some students who can only tutor. And for me in my work as the director of Youth and Family Support Services, sometimes I'm going to the intern, I'm like, today we're going to do social emotional learning. You're going to lead it. You can do it. You're going to lead this class. You're going to talk to these kids about emotions. Here's the lesson plan. Go for it. And sometimes they're terrified. And sometimes they come back and they're like, I really enjoyed this. Can I do it again next week? Absolutely. You can do it next week. You do it. You got it. Or sometimes I'm like, all right, we're going to take the kids outside. You are going to play a game with them. I don't care what game it is. You have 5 minutes to figure it out. Ready? Go. Sometimes they hate it. Sometimes they're like, oh, I actually really like organized games with kids. Can I do this again? Right? Like, the ability to try things and be nervous and move through that nervousness, that space to figure out what they really like is helpful at Hortons Kids. Because once you find your jam, examples here, we're going to let you run with it. Once you figure out this is something that works for you, we're going to give you the space to grow a program, right? We're going to give you a space. I've had volunteers and interns come in and build CCR programs from the ground up and run them, right? That's not a normal experience. That doesn't happen in most places. But at Hortons Kids, it's a big part of my job to make sure that all of the folks that are there learning can learn and grow. So that's really important for me.
Okay, this next question is for my students, or maybe recent students. What do you think would help get more students to actually take CBL classes or do CSLP?
They need to know about it.
Yeah.
Or, yes, that's a big one. It's a conversation I've had with multiple CLCE staff. Just like, we should be in campus tours. We should be in orientation packets. We should be part of the conversation as soon as they get here. Things should be clearly labeled, and like, we should direct them to websites that tell them what to do. I think one of the coolest things about my work on Eagle Endowment is that I get to read all the grant applications that we get. And some of the creativity and the passion that is in these applications is so amazing. And a lot of the times during the interview process, we'll talk to them and they'll be like, I didn't even know this was a claim.
Can you explain what Eagle Endowment is briefly?
Yes, sorry. Eagle Endowment is a student-funded grant program that funds service projects designed and executed by students. It can be either in the service of a community partner or like designing a program themselves. We just had a college immersion day happen. We had the Habitat for Humanity Club on campus do a fundraiser or use the grant to do welcome home baskets for new homeowners at DC for a nonprofit. Coming up next year, there's another college immersion day, which I'd love to get you in contact with the person funding it if you're interested. So yeah, we have a wide variety of different programs that we've done in the past. An amazing opportunity for students, grants up to $1,000 and then a year worth of mentorship. So it's great.
I just wanted to add, thank you for explaining that, but it was all started by students during 9/11 here in Maryville University. They wanted to do something really impactful because of what had happened. And we actually, one of my classes helped do publicity for Eagle Endowment. And they actually started the fund selling T-shirts and things and raised like $50,000, which is what you need to start an endowment. So 9/11, the anniversary is the 25th anniversary is coming up, or we just had it. So what an extraordinary endowment that lives on and started by students like 20-some years ago. And that's I'm a team that you give current students to use that money for their own things or nonprofits. Is correct.
Exactly. And it was the first completely student-funded grant program in the U.S. And it's those kinds of elevator pitch type things that would make a great segment on a campus tour. I didn't even know that. Right. Like,
You definitely mention it in the tours because I think that really, I need to interrupt and all, but I teach a community-based learning class, and we had a prospective student from New Jersey, and she was with her mother. They were doing a tour, and they asked if my class could, have them there for like a half hour. I'm like, of course. And so my class was working on a community-based class, and the students just took over and answered her questions and her mom's questions. And at like 30 minutes into it, the mother says to my students, because she's made a decision, but then she goes, I'm going to come to AU. And I'm like, oh my God. And the students were like clapping. And the mother goes, what do I do now? And I say to one of my students, take her to the undergraduate office and sign on the dotted line. And so I think letting people know during those tours has been invaluable because I think students really get so much out of community-based learning and teaching.
I think we have so many programs here that are attractive to students who are interested in public service, whether it be internationally or domestically, right? They're in DC for a reason. And so offering them as many avenues as possible for that, including volunteering, including experiential learning in ways, right? You can get credit for volunteering. Like, how great is that? That's not just giving away free time. You're benefiting from it. It's serving you as a student. It's serving your community. It's networking. It's professional development is everything. And so I think genuinely, if more people have the time, when I talk to people that I've just met and I'm telling them the things that I do, they're like, I didn't know that was a thing. So the fact that there are students here at this point, 4 years in, that have never heard of CLC or that don't know about the extent of the programs that they offer, I think would make a major difference. So I think people just need to know about it. And I think there's a drive for people to engage with it once they know it's there. There's data to that. Oh, because I wrote my dissertation about gender and participation in CBL, and I used AU, and I did a big survey that was mostly of seniors, and my main finding was I couldn't even break down the gender part of it because the majority of the people who filled out the survey did not know that CBL was a thing. They didn't know it existed. They hadn't heard about it. They hadn't heard about CSLP, all of that. So yeah, you can't participate in something you don't know exists. So yeah, you nailed that. Grad students don't often actually, I think, do community-based learning unless it's project-based. Do you think there's anything that would make grad students more excited about CBL?
I mean, I think the hands-on approach and experience is invaluable. Definitely when we're doing, for a program evaluation, I think for myself, I kind of needed that, needed to see a live example because there's so many different ways of actually solving this intricate puzzle. And there's also human factor, right? They can't really account for. So being able to be in this type of program and actually be able to see what the work is like, it's inviting.
Okay. But I think, okay, so the rest of the time that we have, we wanted to open up for audience questions for our panelists. Does anybody have a question?
In their best practice.
Or, yeah, we have some practitioners in the room. If you have anything that you thought about that you're like, oh, I wish I could tell people this, now's a great chance.
I was going to first ask, what is AU Encounters? Because that was new to me. We heard that one.
Sorry, so that used to be AU, what was it, Bridget? West?
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so it is a different class. And it's a very different class. Yeah, so it's now the first year students and also transfer. So I taught transfer last year. So they all take it in the first semester, and then the second semester is different. That is around shared readings, right, Bridget Baldwin? So it's a different, but that first AU Encounters class, a lot of what we did last in the fall, this was the first time we had faculty teaching it primarily, and staff could teach it too. But a lot of it was around the history of AU.
Oh my gosh.
So I was thinking, oh, that's great. We need to be talking about the history of DC. Like, how does someone not know there's political music? No, that's wild. No one should be leaving not knowing that. So, and being able to talk about these courses too would be really important, I think, for the transfer and the first year students.
And is it like a credit or is it just?
I'm the journalism professor at SOC, and community-based learning was a huge part of my undergrad experience at Boston College. And I was wondering, what is the process for proposing a class, creating a curriculum, getting it approved? Great question.
So I do want to hedge this with, we're hoping actually to update the process in the next few years. But the current process is, there's a list of 8 criteria on CLCE's website. Generally, you would email with one of our colleagues there, Sagar Gupta or myself, and we can help onboard you, look at your syllabi, make sure it meets that criteria. It also has to be coded as a CB class by the registrar's office. So actually, when you go into the schedule of classes, there's an option at the very bottom to choose the type of course. You could choose community-based learning courses. So you'll see, for instance, Dr. Chrysler's class pop up, my class, Gemma's class pop up, Stephanie's class, a number of other people who teach community-based learning courses. And then generally, there's faculty development over the next year. But the 8 criteria are focusing on things that, like, is there instruction on community? Is there instruction on what community-based learning is? Is there instruction on best practices, course readings? It's also making sure the learning outcomes for the course are tied to what the community-based partnership looks like. So Amanda and I are actually going to talk a little bit more about this in our workshop. But I think that 8 criteria is a great place to start at emailing either Sagar Gupta. I believe Sagar's email is sgupta, Gupta, @american.edu, or myself, and we can help start getting you onboarded.
And is this an opportunity that's only open to full-time faculty?
No, adjuncts can also teach community-based learning courses. Unfortunately, there's not a stipend or something available. It is somewhat more labor, I think, than a typical course. I will say, I think professionally and emotionally, the benefits of teaching community-based learning course, like people were pointed to, I think most people who do this work, we do this because we do feel the benefits are so profound. Sarah?
I will also say, even though funding has kind of gone down the past years, there still is funding through SKLC August to support CME courses. So we do have still a limited transportation fund, but we also have a van in the office to help support transportation. Or if you're bringing in people to speak in your class, we have some funding for honorariums. So
Project materials.
Yeah, for materials, yep. So there isn't as much financial support through our office as there used to be, but it's still there. So even if there might not be a stipend to support CME faculty, there's still resources through the CLCE office to help support if you are looking to have a CME course.
Also, demonstrating demand would be helpful probably for advocating for more.
I to that point too, there's been, and I don't know too, Amanda, we have a listserv of people that we've been sending communication out to as it relates to like grants or things from the funds. that are available. And so if you haven't been getting some of the communication related to just support for faculty,
We'd love to add you to that.
We want to make sure that we want to add you to the listserv so that you get updates and make sure we just have the resources from the president as well.
So I'm just going to offer like suggestions on two areas. One is in terms of promoting more widespread, information about community-based learning. There are two kind of famous people in the country who went through the office and did a lot of community-based learning. One is Justin Bibb, who's the mayor of Cincinnati, Ohio, and also Ed O'Keefe, who's a reporter in CBS News. And I always thought, like, why don't we get them as graduation speakers or come and invite them in their town to talk about not only what they do, but their path to getting in when they were undergraduates. That's one idea. And the other is, and I'm sure it still happens, keeping up with which alums, grads of AU went into nonprofit work, whether it's in DC or in other parts of the country, is a really good way to know how influential it was, and then it provided them with a salary. So I think maybe during the year panels with some of those alums working in different fields, whether it's health or immigration or education, could be good. And then the trouble is the publicity is how to get the word out so more people come. But I think, again, it's about careers and working with a career center. Yeah, would make sense. Yeah.
I will say we've started working with the Career Center more in the last several years. We actually had a workshop this semester, which was about how to translate your service work into your resume and how to sell this. My best example, there was a student who was a really consistent, thoughtful volunteer with Hornets Kids last year through doing good. And when she came to the workshop last spring, she said, well, I'm just working with children and doing things with kids. I don't know how to put this on a resume. And the Career Center staff were phenomenal. They sat her down and explained all the different ways to translate this work to make this marketable to any kind of employer. We had a similar experience this year with anyone, especially that worked with children, some people who are doing, I was kind of surprised the students that were doing some lab projects with Anacostia River keepers couldn't see the through line, but it reminded me we need to be really explicit with our students about what marketable skills are and how to frame those. So that workshop is now actually going to be every semester. We're trying to time it for the end of the first month of class, so we get people for the next round of resumes and applications, but that will be an every semester workshop. So.
Yes, I've told any impact scholar who asks me for a recommendation letter, and if I don't see it on their resume, I think they're in trouble because it's so valuable. You need to talk about it.
Well, I'm faculty in the sociology department. I think someone mentioned demand for these classes. So I'm just curious, has there been a lot of demand for these classes from students, or is there something that you guys are having to advertise? Yeah.
I think it depends on the year. We've had some semesters where students are more cautious about going to the city. This has been something that we've noticed since the pandemic. But from what I know about the fall, so far, it seems like enrollments for the CD classes that I've been tracking seem healthy. So I think part of this is getting the word out to faculty that this is an option. This is something that, especially in the reappointment and promotion and tenure process at AU, is now formalized. It does actually, if we may not be getting the financial benefits from doing more work, it is being recognized professionally, most certainly by the university, and now should be recognized across units because we have heard this was inconsistent across the 6 schools before. It's also most certainly recognized in the merit process for most departments at this point. And if it's not, I think it's an important conversation for people to have in their units.
And I also think it's part of the strategic plan, if I'm not mistaken. I think that the 2-year plan came out.
It is definitely part of the strategic plan, and it is one of the metrics that we are tracking. It's tracking, it's done. And I hear looking at race was it's fun.
Quite experiential learning is what, very good now and really important because students have, I think there's a lot of feedback from the university that students have gotten so much out of the experiential learning.
So I'm returning to AU after 10 years away from campus. But before I left, I created a class in SIS, the senior capstone, on veterans. And community-based learning was an option for how they completed their capstone project. At the time, this is again fuzzy in my memory probably, I don't remember any system where at the end of that class, I gave over to a bigger program. Here are the locations that the organizations that they've worked with, and how did it work out? Because I can see both for the students and for professors, an opportunity for like stimulating ideas, or that the fact that we had a really great experience up at the VA hospital might be something that a public health person might want to cross campus and get into that capstone the next year, so they could do that. And it wouldn't be on their radar unless there's a very specific piece of bait put out there for them to, latch onto. Is there a system for that kind of sharing experiences across the campus?
So one, we have a subscription to something called Give Pulse, which helps students find service opportunities. So if you're thinking about teaching a community-based learning course, Give Pulse, if you search American University Give Pulse, you can log in, use your AIM credentials, you can start to find some opportunities there. We'd also encourage you to contact our office, either Sagar or myself, anyone else really in the office, and we're happy to connect you to organizations who are currently doing this work that we know people have good relationships with. I mean, this is part of why we want to encourage things like faculty learning communities about community-based learning. We want to keep the listserv going. We want to keep resources and support going, because a lot of this work does happen through word of mouth. Yeah. So I think those would be some good places to start. I definitely think that sounds like a really important group that I don't think is being served by a community-based learning course at this point, especially since the AU is looking at more partnerships with veterans.
From a student perspective, also, I think one of the most effective, ways that students get connected with nonprofits is we have a nonprofit networking fair every semester. So in addition to the career fair that the Career Center puts on, CLCE does a nonprofit networking fair. So if you're interested in sort of driving volunteers towards that organization specifically, putting them in contact with a CLCE representative would be a great way to get them a table at that fair. But especially as a student, that's where I get a lot of new exposure to nonprofits. We are talking a lot about Sagar's work these days, but we also do a nonprofit needs assessment. So when we go to nonprofits, have been engaging with our students and with our classes, we try to stay in yearly contact with them to ask them, what do you need? How can AU students serve you? And then they let us know what type of volunteer activities that they need for their students, whether that's one-day service events, whether that's semester long, what type of students they might need. And then we compile those into lists. Typically we use it more for our CS students, since that's more independent work that they're doing with the course of the semester. So we have an entire list of nonprofits that not only are looking for volunteers, but are looking for AU volunteers and have a connection to AU. And that's something that we ask them pretty continuously, so it's up to date. So that needs assessment work also helps us connect students outside of just the relationship they have with their professors in their class.
Okay, I was going to say Sagar's also really helpful if you want to start working with community partners, in a capstone kind of project of I just remember the first time I taught capstone, I had no partners. I didn't know even where to begin. Sagar basically connected me with a ton. I mean, what I appreciate about the office is that they allow me to maintain my relationships with my partners. And I really appreciate that, because I think we all know we get a little bit protective of our partners. And I just appreciate that they're there to support when we need, but they're not big brothering us at all, which I really, really appreciate.
Yeah, it is not Sagar's role to weigh in on pedagogy or to weigh in on certain aspects of your syllabus. So this is one of the reasons we're updating some of the criteria, because faculty do own the curriculum. Faculty should be the ones reviewing syllabi. But this is one of those unique instances where the Center for Leadership Community Engagement has always been involved in community-based learning courses, but it's also been on the academic affairs side. It is this hybrid where everybody really has to communicate with each other.
Okay, this was great. Thank you so much, panelists. We have a little less than 15-minute break, right?
We're going to start the workshop community-based learning at 11.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yes. Yep. So cool. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in 12 minutes.